All righty. He's Ross Tucker, the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. He was in the booth for Westwood One for the Bears and the Rams, and he'll be on the sidelines for Seattle, in Seattle, for the championship game with the Rams. Look at you, the peripatetic Ross Tucker.
I don't know what that word means.
You went to Princeton.
Yeah, but you got to give me a heads up. I don't know what that word means. Dang. Is peripatetic good?
Yeah. Yeah, you're all over the place.
Yeah, I'm crazy peripatetic. I always have been.
Yeah. So it's a good thing. You're all over and you're covering college football. Also,
how many of the Danettes right now could spell peripatetic?
Todd?
I don't think so. I won some spelling bees in elementary school, but I'd probably end up spelling it like peripathetic or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, Paulie?
I tried in my head, and I had two things wrong in the first four letters.
You got the first letter right.
You got P right.
Okay, and the last letter, see?
Yeah.
Peripatetic, not pathetic. Okay, Ross. Let's see. Where do you want? Let me start in Buffalo. Sean McDermott got fired because?
Because the organization decided that being good was not good enough. I actually think it's a fascinating dynamic when you consider where Buffalo is versus what Green Bay is doing with extending Brian Gutekunst and their head coach, Matt LaFleur. I don't really, I think, Dan, you can make a strong argument for both instances. You know, and this is something I think everyone listening or watching on Peacock can relate to in life. Is being good enough, or should you take a risk in life to strive to be great? It's funny. I mean, you could probably speak to this as well as anybody, Dan. You would have been good if you stayed at ESPN. You know, you would have made good money. Things would have been good there. Like, you would have been fine. But you took a big risk because you wanted to do see if you could do something really special. And you've done that with the best radio show in the world, right? Like, you decided, you know what? Just being good isn't good enough. I'm going to try to do something really, really great. And I think on some level, that's what the Ravens are doing. And that's what Terry Pegula and the Bills are doing. Whereas the Packers have decided that being almost good enough or close is good enough. And I'm not begrudging them of that. But if you look at the Packers, they've been just good enough to not be good enough to get to the Super Bowl for a long time now. I mean, it's been a long time. They've had high-level quarterback play, and they haven't even gotten back to a Super Bowl. Whereas Terry Pegula and the Bills said, you know what? We want to try to win this thing. And by the way, there's a risk. Maybe they hire Brian Daboll. Maybe they go the wrong way. You know, maybe they have a Chiefs season and they win 6 games next year. This is a risk, but it's one that obviously Terry Pegula felt comfortable with.
Why did you have a problem with Sean McDermott's post press conference?
Yeah, well, so I think there's probably a couple of reasons why he did that. I think, in fairness to him, Dan, he probably knew he was on the hot seat. And so by going that strong on the officiating and the calls, you know, maybe he could defer blame, get it off of his shoulders, move it to the officials. Maybe that would be enough to save his job. Or maybe that would be enough to, even if he's going to lose his job anyway, Bills fans will remember him fighting for Buffalo, darn it, and that the officials, you know, gave them a raw deal. I have 2 young daughters. They're 12 and 13 now. I'm a huge believer in life, in personal responsibility, personal accountability. You know, they're both playing volleyball or tennis or whatever. You know, I don't like when people blame others. I watched that game. You know, I got the helmet right there. The Bills are my favorite team that I played for. And I have a strong affinity for the people in Western New York. Josh Allen's probably my favorite player. But Dan, they need to play better. I mean,
yeah,
Josh
but how much of that is
better
on Sean McDermott? He didn't throw the interceptions and he didn't fumble the ball a couple of times. He didn't have a catch turn into an interception. Like, what What is it that he did that was so egregious in that game where you go, we got to get rid of him?
That's a fair point. And I don't think it's just that game. I think it's just the compilation of all of these years. And there have been coaching issues that were, I think, more noticeable in other years. And I think they would probably even say to you that they're not ready to be a wild card team and for the Patriots over the course of the season to have overtaken them in the AFC East. But you're 1,000% right. Josh Allen, not only the turnovers, but Josh missed Dawson Knox for the game-winning touchdown. He had other misses in that game. And by the way, everybody's complaining about Brandon Cooks and was it a catch? Hold on to the ball. Don't let him rip the ball out of your hands. Like that to me epitomizes our society. You can either choose to say, that's a catch, we're getting screwed, that's a raw deal, or you can say, our guy should have held on to the ball.
Yeah, we want to blame the official instead of, if you hold on to the ball, you don't factor in the official.
Exactly correct. Thank you.
We're talking to Ross Tucker, and he was there in the booth for the Rams and the Bears. What did you think of, like, if you're the Bears coming out of that game, you lose, but your feeling about the Bears is going to be what next year?
Highly encouraged and optimistic, because by far the two most important individuals in any NFL organization is the head coach and the quarterback. And I think you're feeling really good about both those guys. And I've told you this before, in particular, your ability to get it done no matter what the situation is late in games. I believe that's worth a win or two a year, maybe even more. The belief that is throughout that entire locker room, that entire building, no matter what the score is in the fourth quarter, they believe they've got the guys, the head coach, and more importantly, the quarterback that finds a way to get it done in those situations. I don't know how he does it. And let me just say this. I'm going to call it right now, Dan. Would not be surprised if there's a step back from the Bears next year. I think you're encouraged. And I think if you're a Bears fan like Paulie, you should be encouraged. They're not going to win 7 games in the final 2 minutes next year.
Yeah.
They're not going to have by far the most takeaways and be plus 22 next year. The Bears next year feel very similar going into the season as the Commanders this year, in the sense that there's a lot to be excited about, but you're probably going to see some regression in a couple areas to the mean.
Yeah, I think the Bears were a better story than they were a team, and I agree with you. But they felt like they got further than they were expected to, maybe a year ahead, like the Commanders felt like they were a year ahead of schedule. You got the Rams now against Seattle again. How do you think this one plays out?
I like the Seahawks. I thought the Rams were the best team most of the season. It kind of feels like ever since the fourth quarter of that Seahawks-Rams game, that Thursday night game, whatever week that was, 14 or 15, feels like the Seahawks have been the best team. Stafford has not played well under pressure in these last 2 playoff games. Wait till you play Seattle. I mean, those guys, they come at you, Leonard Williams and DeMarcus Lawrence and Byron Murphy, and Mike McDonald's probably the best defensive mind in the NFL right now. And I just think the Rams, it feels like they're running out of gas a little bit, whereas the Seahawks came flying out of the gate. They're young, they're healthy, they're playing at home. The only way, in my mind, the Rams win that game is if the disparity of quarterback is that significant.
Well,
Stafford has to play MVP caliber, and Darnold has to be average or below for the Rams to win.
It's incumbent upon Seattle to be able to run the football, to put Sam Darnold in a position where he doesn't have to be Matthew Stafford.
No question, it'll be a little bit tougher. Zach Charbonnet, torn ACL. Charbonnet was huge against the Niners week 18. There's a lot to be said for having that 1-2 punch. Walker's probably a little bit more gifted, but he's injury prone. Can he carry the entire load by himself for the entire game? That is one thing that helps the Rams out a little bit, that the Seahawks don't have that 1-2 punch to come at you in waves, and those guys have different styles. So it's almost like two pitchers throwing different pitches at you.
When you block for your quarterback as a former offensive lineman, blocking for Bo Nix, blocking for Jarrett Stidham, is it still the same?
Yeah, I think the only difference would be Nix is more mobile, so you're more aware of having to hold your block a little bit longer. You're more conscious of him escaping the pocket and making sure you don't get called for a holding penalty. And so you're a little bit more aware of those type of things. Stidham is more of, a classic pocket passer. He can move a little bit. I got to tell you, Dan, I don't think he would ever verbalize this, but this really works out well for Sean Payton from a coaching legacy standpoint. If they lose without Bo Nix, it's like, okay, look, their starting quarterback got hurt. We understand. It's almost like he's got a free roll of the dice. If they win with Stidham, Payton's going to get the lion's share of the credit, especially if they go on to win the Super Bowl. For Sean Payton's Hall of Fame candidacy, for his legacy, this almost couldn't have worked out better.
I'll leave you with this. There was a moment with 2 minutes left where an offensive lineman for Indiana last night got called for a false start. When you go into the huddle, how many times are you told by your quarterback, whatever you do, don't flinch, don't jump. Make sure you go a little later, not early. You must not jump. And we saw that last night in a moment that could have changed the national title game.
Well, it depends on the quarterback. Depends on the composition of the offensive line. I'm guessing that they mentioned it, but you're 1,000% correct. That could have been and almost was the difference. It's interesting because nowadays in the NFL, Dan, on 2nd and 1 in a clock-killing situation, sometimes the defenses, they'll intentionally jump off sides to give you the first down so that then they can use the timeouts on the first. Like, in other words, they're going to concede the first down because they don't want you to have 4 or 5 plays to finish the game. They only want you to have 3 plays. Now, you can decline it or whatever if you're that smart. And I was thinking that Miami might do that. That's the counter argument. That's why you don't do that, because they might drop the ball, the running back might slip, or the offensive lineman might false start, which changed everything.
Do you have a false start story from your NFL career?
The one that I'm trying. No, actually. So I do have a couple false starts. I don't remember them being that big a deal. It is a weird thing, though, because you feel like such a dummy when you come back to the huddle.
Do you apologize? Do you apologize? Like, what do you say?
Yes, you say my bad, and everybody's just like, idiot. Because you're at the line, you're the only one that did it. You go back to the huddle. Sometimes they say stuff to you, sometimes they don't. It's interesting because I thought I had a false start as a goal line tight end once, but I didn't. I was just laid off the snap, because what people don't tell you is when you're a center, obviously you can hear the quarterback. When you're a guard, you can too. You get to tackle a little bit tougher. When you're a goal line tight end, I could not hear Bledsoe. I could not hear the quarterback. So I was a little bit late on that D end. He ended up making the tackle. We lost the game. Probably the reason why we didn't make the playoffs. No big deal.
Great to talk to you. Safe travels as always. The peripatetic Ross Tucker. Thank you, bud.
I'm going to write down how I think you spell it first and then Google it right now. See ya.
Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Follow him on social media at Ross Tucker NFL. And he'll be on the sidelines for the game in Seattle, the NFC title game.